From homeless to millionaire. A black man's journey inspired by Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Elijah's world had never been simple. 10 years ago, he was nothing more than a shadow on the cold streets. A man with empty pockets and a heart full of quiet desperation. But today, he stood in a penthouse taller than most buildings in the city, surrounded by glass walls that caught the fading sun and threw away the night like it was nothing. A black man, billionaire, and the owner of a tech empire so secretive that even the media could only guess what went on behind the reinforced doors. The story that catapulted Elijah into this rarefied air wasn't just luck. It was whispers in the darkest corners, rumors about deals struck at midnight, unfamiliar names etched in smoke-filled backrooms. How did a man with nothing rise so fast? They said he'd been inspired by two of the most polarizing names on the planet, Elon Musk and Donald Trump. That alone made people's jaws drop. What kind of strop? His old life was a maze of shadows. Faint memories of a pact, a promise whispered under a street lamp to a man who threw him a lifeline with conditions nobody dared to speak of aloud. The pact was dark, weighing on his soul like a storm ready to break. Then, last night, an encrypted message arrived from Elon Musk himself. The screen flashed with a string of cryptic numbers and a single chilling line. You can't escape what you agreed to. Time's running out. The words hit Elijah like a punch to the gut. Sharp, cold, and impossible to ignore. His hands trembled as he replayed those words in his mind. Was this a threat? A warning? Or a call to action no one else could understand? Elijah's chest tightened again when his estranged brother appeared in the lobby, eyes blazing with disbelief and betrayal. "You sold us out," he spat. The accusation cut deeper than any knife. They hadn't spoken in years, not since Elijah vanished into his glittering new life. Now, the past wasn't just knocking, it was hammering on the door. Every secret Elijah buried threatened to explode into the open. Trust was a distant memory, and redemption felt like a cruel joke. The clock was ticking, and an unseen enemy lurked just beyond the edge of the city's neon glow. Would answering Musk's message save Elijah, or finally destroy everything he fought for? And what truth, terrifying and dangerous, waited in those coded lines? Elijah could feel the answer clawing at the edges of his mind, pulling him toward a destiny that might either redeem his soul or bury it forever. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without notice. Take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclaimer. Oh, and let me know in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Elijah's heart raced, pounding in his chest like a drum. His brother's words echoed in his mind. But the shock of that message from Musk was still fresh. He felt sweat trickle down his back as he searched for the right words. "I didn't sell anyone out," he replied, voice barely above a whisper. "I had to survive." But before he could find the right moment to explain, the lobby door swung open again. A group of men in dark suits marched in. They moved like sharks, cutting through the crowd's anxious murmurs, eyes locked on Elijah. The air thickened with tension. "Mr. King," one of them said, stepping forward. The voice was cold, hard as steel. "We need to talk." "What? Who are you?" Elijah's mind spun. Fear gripped him. Were they here for him? Had Musk sent them? "Your time is up," another suit said. "You've been a busy man, haven't you?" The words dripped with venom. Elijah felt his brother shift beside him, uncertainty cracking into panic. "I'm not involved with," Elijah began, but the suit cut him off. "Don't lie. We know everything about your deals. Every secret you thought you buried." They pulled a tablet from a case, slapping it onto the reception desk. Images flickered to life, showing blurry shots of meetings and whispered agreements. Faces either disguised or hidden in the shadows. Elijah's past splashed back in vivid color. He staggered back, hand clutching his chest. This is impossible." A voice in the back of his mind whispered, "What if it's all true? What if the promises came with strings he never saw?" "Family," the first suit said, tilting his head toward Elijah's brother, whose face blanched. "Your brother here didn't know hiding was a family trait. After all, he has secrets too." Elijah turned, eyes wide. "What do you mean?" Before his brother could respond, a phone buzzed violently in the coat pocket of one of the suits. The man pulled it out and glanced at the screen, eyes widening in shock. "No, it can't be. They found us." "Who found us?" Elijah demanded, nerves twisting into a knot of dread. "Sons of Liberty," the man whispered, and a weight settled over Elijah like lead. Those words felt like a storm brewing. He had heard of them, whispers of a group rising from the depths, claiming rights over technology, scrambling for revenge against the affluent. "No," Elijah breathed, horror spilling into his thoughts. "I'm not involved with them." "I swear." "Swearing means nothing," the second suit snapped. "You have 30 minutes. After that, we will be back, and you better have answers. If not," the threat hung in the air like a thick fog. As the suits turned to leave, a sudden commotion erupted outside the building. A black SUV skidded to a halt, tires screeching. The noise cut through a moment of tense silence. The crowd pressed against the glass like ants. Gunfire rang out. Sharp cracks exploded, blurring the atmosphere. People screamed, scattering like leaves in a storm. Elijah's heart dropped as a figure emerged from the SUV. A woman, clad in black tactical gear, a gun slung over her shoulder. She scanned the chaos with focused intensity, eyes landing on Elijah. In that moment, everything changed. Elijah recognized her. "Cassie?" His voice was barely a whisper, disbelief wrapping around him. Her expression shifted from fierce determination to raw panic. "Elijah, they know! You need to run now!" Something within him crumbled. Everything he'd built, the life that glimmered with promise. Suddenly, he was back in the shadows. Elijah had to make a choice. Was it time to confront the sins of his past? Or would he turn away, spiral back into that abyss? His brother's hand gripped his arm, desperate. "What do we do?" The answer loomed over him, heavy with the weight of lost years. And just as Elijah opened his mouth to respond, another gunshot echoed through the night. Everything was spiraling out of control, and for the first time, he questioned whether he could escape the very pact that had saved him. A thick fog of uncertainty settled over his world once more. What awaited him on the other side? Elijah's heart raced as he faced his brother, the wall of silence that had built over the years cracking with each heartbeat. The accusation echoed between them like a thunderclap. "You sold us out." "No, you don't understand," Elijah's voice shot back, filled with desperation. "I had no choice." But the words flew past his brother unheeded. Their history loomed large, an ancient mountain, a weight neither could bear. Then, as if summoned by their rising tension, the lobby's atmosphere shifted. The air thickened, wrapping them in an unsettling gloom. A sudden crash came from the entrance, silencing the murmurs of the onlookers who had begun to gather. Everyone turned, eyes wide, throats tight. Elijah felt the tension mount, muscles coiling in anticipation. And then he saw him, a man in a dark suit, sunglasses shading his eyes that glimmered with something unnameable. He was flanked by security, towering and imposing. The man's presence sucked the laughter and murmurs from the air, and replaced it with a heavy weight of fear. Elijah's pulse thundered in his ears. A knot formed in his stomach. His brother stepped back, a flash of recognition slicing through his expression. "No, it can't be," he whispered, fear dripping from his words. The man took a step forward, pulling off his sunglasses slowly, revealing a familiar face. Elijah felt his world tilt. It was not just any figure. It was Marcus, his childhood friend, the boy who had once been his closest ally on those cold streets. How could this be? The past rushed over Elijah, a wave that threatened to drown him. Marcus had turned into a shadow of fierce determination, running with power that reached far beyond their wildest dreams. "Surprise, Elijah," Marcus sneered, lips curling in a mock smile. "Looks like life has been treating you well." Elijah's mind raced. What was Marcus doing? Had he found out about the pact? Panic gripped him. Then Marcus's voice cut through, sharp and clear. "You should have known I'd find you." The words hung in the air. Elijah's hands shook, every secret festering in his chest, now spilling over like water from a broken dam. "Marcus, Save it," he interrupted, stepping closer. "You think you can just leave behind where we came from? You think money can erase our past?" "Listen, I didn't." But the words died in his throat. The reality of Marcus's accusations struck deep. Elijah hadn't just changed. He had fled, abandoning his past and the people who mattered. And then, like thunder, the ground beneath them shook. An explosion rocked the building, sending shattered glass raining down from above. The crowd screamed and scattered in panic, gasping and ducking. The world blurred with chaos. Elijah instinctively grabbed his brother, pulling him close. But Marcus was already gone, lost in the storm of bodies. Everything spiraled. The scent of smoke filled the air. Elijah's heart pounded. Was this connected to the message from Musk? Questions raced through his mind, but one sentiment stood out, louder than the surrounding chaos. He had to find Marcus. But would he expose the truth? The truth that might change everything, shatter the life he had built. As panic spread like wildfire, an icy fear coursed through Elijah's veins. The shadows were closing in, and the only certainty was that the truth was waiting just outside. And it would come for him, eventually. Elijah stood frozen, the air thick with tension, as the world around him fell apart. The explosion's aftermath filled the lobby with a haze of smoke and confusion. He gripped his brother's arm, heart hammering, recalling every moment they had missed, every wound they hadn't healed, and there was Marcus, his childhood friend, a shadow now, living proof that sometimes friends become enemies. Something sharp twisted in his gut as uncertainty gnawed at him. Why had Marcus turned against him? Was power really worth it? Run! Cassie's voice cut through the chaos, snapping him out of his thoughts. Without hesitation, he pulled his brother along, pushing through the throngs of terrified onlookers, scattered like leaves in a storm. The doors loomed ahead, but they felt a million miles away. His mind raced. Where could they go? They had nowhere but the streets that raised him. And that thought was frightening. As they burst outside, the distant wail of sirens echoed closer. The city, once vibrant and full of promise, now felt like a trap. Each corner hiding secrets that threatened to swallow them whole. He felt the weight of his brother's gaze, simmering with resentment. Why didn't you come back for us? His brother's accusation cut through the frantic energy swirling around them, but it felt like a needle in water, quickly lost in the turbulence. I thought it'd be better. I thought! But a deafening explosion interrupted him again. This one even closer. He stumbled backward, his legs giving way, as searing heat rushed over him. The world spun, disoriented. The lobby behind them was a mess of chaos. Gunfire, shouts, smoke. In that moment, all that mattered was survival. Suddenly, Cassie was at his side, pulling him toward a narrow alley. This way! It's safer! Elijah wanted to follow, but he hesitated, eyes darting back to where Marcus had disappeared. The gaping emptiness filled with regret. Come on! Cassie tugged at him, urgency cutting through his hesitation. He stumbled into the alley after her, his brother trailing closely behind. They hugged the damp brick walls, breathing heavily, adrenaline coursing through their veins. The chaos outside continued, silence punctuated by the terror they had just escaped. Who was that? His brother's voice trembled, fear lacing his words. Someone from my past, Elijah replied, breathless. Your past is going to get us killed. Elijah turned to his brother, heart dropping. There it was, that familiar accusation. The words ignited a blinding frustration, yet deep down, he knew the truth hurt them both. It isn't just my past, it's ours. We were in it together. The tension hung thick. And before either could push further, Cassie turned sharply, her expression merging with panic. We need to move! But just as they took a step, a figure emerged from the shadows. They froze. It was just another man, dressed plainly, who somehow seemed too familiar. His face was a mask of determination, eyes sharp and piercing. I'm here to help, he shouted, raising his hands. The moment felt suspended, time bending. Who are you? Cassie demanded. I used to work with him, Elijah said slowly, suddenly uneasy. No, you don't understand. The man stepped closer. I'm here to warn you. It's not just Marcus. What could be worse? Elijah snapped, a wave of frustration crashing over him. I know what really happened that night, when you made your pact. The man's voice trembled, and his next words fell like a heavy weight. Your brother, he's not who you think he is. Elijah's breath caught in his throat. His brother took a step back, paling further with every word. The truth is, The man paused, eyes darting nervously, sensitive with the gravity of his statement. You were chosen for something bigger, and your brother, he knows. Those words crashed against Elijah like a tidal wave, shattering everything in its path. The silence that followed felt unbearable. Was it possible? The brother he'd clung to through every shadow was hiding secrets? The foundation of their relationship cracked beneath him, and every sacred memory turned to ash. What do you mean? His voice was barely a whisper, desperation and disbelief colliding in a bizarre dance. The man took a shaky breath. The pact you made was never just about survival. It was about power, and he knew all along. Heart racing, Elijah's vision narrowed. Questions bombarded him, each more urgent than the last. He needed to hear the rest of the truth. He needed to know who his brother really was, and what that meant for everything they'd fought for. As the sirens blared closer, all he could feel was uncertainty. What was waiting for him in the shadows? Elijah stood frozen, the weight of his brother's words crashing over him like a tidal wave. He couldn't shake the feeling that his past was a fortress, and now it was crumbling before his eyes. But fear gnawed at him, a fear he hadn't felt in years. "Get out," he said, his voice low and trembling. He wanted to yell, to say something cutting, but all he could do was stare at his brother's hurt face, twisted in accusation. Had he really sold out? And to who? "What happened to you, Eli?" his brother asked, his voice shaking with anger. "You used to be one of us. I didn't think you'd forget where you came from." Pain seared through Elijah. "I'm trying to survive." The words exploded out of him, raw and desperate. They echoed in the lavish lobby as if the walls themselves were judging him. Then, just as the moment reached its boiling point, the lights flickered. A sudden silence filled the air, heavy and tense, like a gasp waiting to be heard. People around them began to murmur. Anxiety hung like smoke in the air. Elijah turned, instinctively scanning the room. "What the hell?" someone shouted. Smack! The sound of glass shattering pierced the quiet. Elijah's heart raced. He spun around to see a figure in black, darting past the last gleam of sunlight, just outside the glass walls of his penthouse. Panic gripped his chest as he tried to comprehend what he'd just seen. Was it a burglar? A threat? "Stay here," he growled at his brother, narrowing his eyes towards the direction of the figure. He pushed through the crowd, adrenaline pumping through his veins. Outside, the night air was thick with tension. The figure was gone, lost in the chaos of the city lights, but doubt lingered, whispering that something was horribly wrong. Elijah felt the hair on his neck stand up. "Get back inside!" someone shouted from the doorway. A cacophony of footsteps follow, urgencia fuliendo la caos pánico. Then came the sound, a distant explosion. The ground shook under his feet, sending him tumbling against the cold glass. Shattered pieces rained around him like dark confetti. The crowd screamed, voices melding into a symphony of terror. "Elijah!" His brother's voice cut through the chaos. Through the haze, Elijah caught his brother's terrified gaze. But right then, a new danger emerged from the crowd. An announcement crackled through a loudspeaker, shaky and echoing. "Evacuate immediately! Repeat! The building is compromised!" A dark realization hit Elijah like a freight train. He didn't just have enemies from the shadows. This was orchestrated. But why? Who wanted him dead? Was this about the pact? Was it about something more sinister, buried deep in the deals he made. And in that instant, between the chaos and fear, Elijah's heart sank as a familiar face emerged from the shadows. Someone he thought he'd left behind, a ghost from his past. "I can save you, Eli," said the figure, their voice a haunting whisper. "But you have to trust me. This time, I'm here to collect." The world spun as Elijah's mind flooded with countless questions. Nothing made sense. His life in ruins, and yet a hint of twisted hope flickered within the storm. Could he trust this person? Or was this the final blow to everything he'd built? The answer loomed like a dark cloud over him, and his chest tightened. Whatever the truth was, it would change everything, forever. Elijah's heart raced. His estranged brother stood before him, anger burning bright in his eyes. Truth cracked open, threatening to spill all over the polished marble floor of the lobby. "You sold us out." His brother's words echoed painfully in the cavern of Elijah's chest. But Elijah scarcely absorbed the accusation. His mind spun back to that message. What did Musk want from him? The flash of encrypted text loomed over him, shadows dancing at the edge of his memory. Time was running out, and the weight of whispered secrets smothered any chance of escape. And then, as the tension in the air grew thick and electric, a sudden commotion broke through the cold silence. A group of suited men burst into the lobby, their presence overwhelming. They moved like a storm, all shouts and sharp gestures. One man, taller than the rest, locked eyes with Elijah. Panic rose. There was something familiar about him, something terrifying. "Elijah, you have to come with us now," the man shouted, voice echoing, eyes seething with urgency. The lobby was skimming with whispers. People gawked, unsure of whether to stand clear or lean in. Cameras flashed, capturing a moment they didn't yet understand. "Who are you?" Elijah's voice shook, panic clawing at his throat. The last thing he wanted was to be dragged back into a life he barely escaped. "They're gonna expose you," his brother shouted, voice rising above the chaos. They know everything." Suddenly, the tall man stepped closer, his face inches from Elijah's. "It's your father. He's alive, and he's behind it all." The words hit like a thunderclap, pulses racing in the heavy silence that followed. Elijah sin Sarah's twiste. His father, the man he thought was dead, buried under the weight of their family's legacy? It felt impossible. Each blink, a denial. But in that moment, his brother's startled face told another story. "We thought you were too far gone to remember," his brother barely whispered, disbelief painted across his features. "But we buried him," Elijah spat, confusion gnawing. Memories of whispered goodbyes and tear-stained cheeks invaded his mind. No! This can't be real!" "Come with us," the tall man insisted, voice low but firm. "You need to understand what he's planning. The empire you built, it wasn't just for you. He wants in." As the weight of those words settled, something tremored beneath Elijah's resolve. His father, the dark shadow of his past, part of his story now? It felt like a betrayal, operating in the layer of skin between fear and anger. Shivers ran down his spine as he glanced at his brother. The betrayal now mirrored back at him. Was his family still a part of this twisted world he had fought to escape? Who could he trust? Every choice felt heavy, filled with past echoes, haunting his decisions. Then, the sound of a phone buzzing erupted. The tall man's eyes darted to his pocket. "It's a signal! We need to go! All of us! Now!" Elijah felt rooted to the spot. Outside, darkness crept closer, wrapping around the bustling city with a sense of dread. His empire, his rise, suddenly felt like a house built on sand, and the truth his father held dangled like a sword over his head. Would he follow this path back into hell? Or would the truth finally set him free? Suddenly, Elijah's entire universe shrank around the moment, every heartbeat loud in his ears. The tall man leaned in, urgency dripping from his voice. "Your life is about to change forever. But it's more than just your journey at stake. They're coming for you." And as the shadows swallowed the glass walls of his penthouse, Elijah knew one thing for certain. Everything he thought he lost might just come crashing back, and the truth would either save him or destroy everything he built. Elijah's heart raced as he faced his brother, the familiar weight of guilt suffocating him. Every moment felt like it carried the energy of a storm, all heightened by that haunting message from Musk. His estranged brother's eyes blazed with anger. Ha 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 ha! Igniting a fire within him that threatened to consume everything he thought he'd built. But before he could respond, the lobby doors flew open. A group of men, shadows dressed in dark suits, poured in, their expressions hardened. They moved like a pack, a coordinated wave of danger that made the hairs on Elijah's neck stand on end. The energy shifted instantly, fear crackling in the air. "Get down," someone shouted. Elijah barely registered the command before he was "What's happening?" Elijah gasped, adrenaline pumping through his veins. His brother didn't answer, mouth agape as he stared at the intrusion. The strangers were too still, too calculated, and Elijah felt a creeping sense of dread wash over him. One of the men stepped forward, his face eerily calm. "We're not here to hurt anyone," he said, but his voice had a sharp edge. "We need to talk to Elijah, now." Elijah's stomach dropped. "What do you want?" he managed. The words barely a whisper. The man tilted his head, scrutinizing Elijah as if he could see the cracks underneath his polished exterior. "It's about the pact," he said, emphasizing the last word like it was a loaded gun. "You've forgotten your obligations." Then it hit Elijah like a freight train. The pact, the one he'd buried deep in the corners of his mind, buried under success, buried under wealth. He thought he had escaped its grasp, but here it was, rearing its ugly head. "Your time frame is up," the man continued. "Your silence has been rewarding, but now you must pay your dues." His brother's voice trembled. What the hell is he talking about? Before Elijah could answer, another figure entered the lobby, moving with an unsettling confidence. It was a woman, dressed in a tailored suit, her dark hair slicked back. She smirked, her gaze locked on Elijah, and he felt a chill run down his spine. "It's true," she said, her tone dripping with malice. "Elijah has some very dangerous friends. But it's not just about you anymore, is it?" Her eyes flickered to Elijah's brother, and he could see the blinding realization dawning on his face. "What did you do?" his brother demanded, the betrayal flashing in his eyes. Elijah's mind raced, guilt flooding his system. The lies, the deception. It wasn't just his life he'd altered, but everyone around him. "I didn't choose this," he tried to defend himself, but the words felt hollow. "Didn't you? Or did you just fool yourself into thinking you had a choice?" the woman challenged, stepping closer, invading his space. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the lobby. An explosion rocked the building, and debris rained down, sending everyone sprawling. Panic erupted, screams cutting through the air like shattered glass. Elijah's vision blurred with fear, and in that chaos, a thought pressed against his mind. This was no random attack. Someone wanted him gone. Grappling with desperation, he snatched his brother's arm. "We have to go! Now!" But even as he yelled, he could see the shattered trust in his brother's eyes, a connection frayed and torn. As they stumbled toward the exit, Elijah heard a voice over the cacophony. "Your past isn't just behind you, Elijah. It's coming for you." The warning hung in the air, thick as smoke, as they bolted into the unknown. The world outside was dark, filled with the sirens of chaos. Elijah felt a churn of uncertainty. Would the truth come crashing down, or could he still pull himself from this spiraling abyss? Would he lose everything yet again? Nothing felt certain. Everything had changed, and in the weight of that moment, Elijah could only run, the shadows of his choices chasing behind him. What other secrets lurked in the dark, waiting for him to face the music? Elijah's heart raced as he bolted out of the lobby into the chaos of the night. Sirens screamed in the distance, blending with the echoes of panic from behind him. He grasped his brother's arm tightly, pulling him away from the crumbling world. Cassie led the way, urgency in her every step. They ducked into a narrow alley, shadows wrapping around them like a blanket. "We need to find a safe place," Cassie urged, glancing over her shoulder, eyes wide with fear. Elijah's mind spun wildly. His past was closing in. "Marcos, the men in suits, Musk's ominous message. It felt like a storm, swirling answers and questions into a cyclone. What do you mean by they're coming for you?" he demanded, breathless as they hurried behind a dumpster, the grit of the alley harsh against his back. Cassie met his gaze. "They've been watching you, watching all of us." "Who?" His voice bled with desperation. "What's happening?" But before she could answer, another explosion rocked the ground, sending them all to the floor. Hard, heart pounding, Elijah pushed himself up, spotting a glimmer in the shadows, a figure. Close, it looked familiar, but he couldn't make out the details through the rising smoke. "Elijah!" a voice called out, hoarse yet cutting through the panic. "It's me." Time seemed to freeze. The voice struck a chord deep within him, sending chills through his spine. He squinted through the haze, recognizing her. "Mom?" She stepped into the dim light, her face drawn, eyes wide with a mixture of concern and something Elijah couldn't place. Determination, perhaps. "I've been looking for you! You're alive!" His words fell out, barely a breath. But I thought... "We don't have time for this, Elijah." She reached forward, grabbing him by the shoulders, her grip fierce and grounding. "They're on to you. All of this, the pact, your success, it's all connected to him." "Who?" His brother's voice shook beside him, still trying to process the resurgence of their mother, the mother they lost. "Elijah's father," she said, voice low, eyes darting nervously. "He's been alive this whole time, pulling strings you never saw." Elijah felt the ground beneath him shift. Everything he thought he knew cracked apart. No, it couldn't be true. "What do you mean he's still alive?" "Marcus is not just your friend," she continued, urgency spilling from her lips. "He works for your father. He's been watching you, waiting for the perfect moment to find you again." A sickening twist of betrayal churned in Elijah's stomach. But why? His mother hesitated, as if caught in a web of secrets. "It's about control, Elijah. He plans to take everything back. Your empire, your life. It was never just yours." Everything around Elijah dissolved into a swirl of confusion. He could see his brother's eyes, wide with disbelief. They had escaped one nightmare, only to stumble into another. "But he loved us. He would never." "Love?" His mother's voice cracked. "Love is powerful, but power can corrupt beyond recognition. He doesn't see you as a son anymore. He sees you as a pawn." Before Elijah could process this avalanche of truth, another explosion erupted nearby, shaking the ground beneath them more violently than before. Glass shattered somewhere down the street, sending shards flying. "Run!" Cassie shouted, pulling them back into motion. As they sprinted away, Elijah felt something shift deep inside him. The man he thought he left behind wasn't just a ghost haunting his past. He was a puppet master, and Elijah was tangled in the strings of his dark legacy. The alley twisted ahead, narrowing, and suddenly everything shifted again. A figure blocked their path. Marcus. But he wasn't alone. He had a gun. It pointed directly at them. Body language tense, eyes narrowed. "Elijah," he called, voice cold and mocking. "Didn't expect to see you here. Mother, brother, how quaint." In that moment, a new understanding dawned. Marcus was the real enemy, and as gunfire erupted, time froze again. The choice crystallized. Elijah could either run or face the truth about the legacy waiting for him. Would he fight to protect what remained of his life, or would he dive deeper into the shadows that threatened to swallow him whole? Elijah's heart hammered in his chest as he faced Marcus, the gun aimed straight at him. His mind raced. This was it. Was this how it all ended? Fear clawed at his throat as Marcus tightened his grip, his eyes cold and calculating. Behind him, his brother and Cassie pressed together, uncertainty flooding the space between them. "Don't move!" Marcus barked, voice sharp as glass. "I'm giving you one chance to walk away from this, Elijah. Leave now, and maybe I'll let your family go." But Elijah couldn't tear his gaze away from his old friend's twisted expression. This wasn't the boy he once knew, the loyal companion from the streets. This was someone driven by ambition, by a hunger for power. "You don't have to do this, Marcus. Elijah pleaded, desperation coating every word. We can talk this out. We can... He's all talk, Marcus interrupted. He's been living in his bubble, pretending he doesn't owe anything to anyone. But trust me, Elijah, the bill has come due. Cassie shifted, sweat glistening on her brow. Don't do this! We can't let him turn you against us! But Marcus just laughed, a harsh, mirthless sound. You think this is about loyalty? About friendship? He gestured wildly, weapons still trained on Elijah. You're mistaken, Cassie. This is survival. Elijah felt a surge of anger, rising like a tide. And what about our past, Marcus? We were brothers. You think this is survival? You're just a hired gun in your father's twisted plan. Something flickered in Marcus's eyes. A flash of doubt? A crack in his armor? But it vanished in an instant, replaced by steely determination. Then from behind them, a deafening sound cut through the tension, making everyone flinch. A loud crash echoed, sending vibrations through the ground. Just as Elijah turned, a massive explosion burst through the alley, debris flying in all directions. Time slowed. The world faded away in a roar of chaos and noise. Glass shattered, flames licked at the edges of their view, and everything turned to smoke. Elijah felt something warm splatter across his face, and he stumbled, instinctively reaching for his brother. "Get down!" Cassie shouted. But it all happened too fast. The shockwave knocked him off his feet. Darkness closed in for a breathless moment. Then, silence. Elijah blinked, the dust still settling. His ears rang, vision swimming back into focus. He gasped, adrenaline coursing through him. The alley lay in ruins, twisted metal, shattered bricks, mist hovering like ghosts between the fallen debris. Where was everyone? Panic surged again. "Marcus!" he shouted, voice hoarse. His brother. Cassie, were they safe? Had they... Eli! A muffled cry from the remains drew his attention. He clawed his way through the rubble, desperation clawing at his chest, and then he saw them. His brother, pinned under a fallen piece of metal, Cassie kneeling beside him, eyes wide with terror. "Help!" Cassie pleaded, urgency flooding her voice. Elijah's heart stopped. "Hold on!" he shouted, rushing forward to lift the metal slab. But something stopped him. Marcus. Looking for him, he turned and froze. Marcus was gone, vanished into the wreckage, swallowed by the darkness. And then came a whisper, soft but chilling, slicing through the chaos. "You've always been so weak, Elijah." A figure emerged from the smoke, stepping through the shadows, draped in darkness. It was his father, alive. The man stood there, a ghost raised from the grave, eyes gleaming with pride and malice. "What?" Elijah gasped, his breath catching in disbelief. "Surprise, son," his father sneered, voice dripping with a sense of twisted satisfaction. "I've been waiting for this moment." Shock shook him. "You set this up? All of it?" "Why, Gross," his father said, stroking the air like he was caressing a prize. "I had to test your strength. You can't hide from me any longer. Now, it's time to embrace your true identity." Elijah felt his world crumble. His past unfolded in an instant, revealing the twisted truth hidden beneath everything he'd built. Betrayal seeped into his veins, pulling him under like quicksand. "Stand up, Elijah!" his father commanded, laughter echoing like a dark symphony. "Join me or die with the rest of them." The world around him was chaos, and in that moment, Elijah stood at a crossroads, reflecting grimly on the family ties that had only ever felt like chains. Would he embrace his twisted heritage, or fight against the very foundation of who he thought he was? As the shadows loomed closer, Elijah felt the weight of fate pressing down on him, and it felt like a choice that could shape everything and everyone he loved. Elijah felt the weight of the moment crashing down around him. His father stood there, ominous as a thundercloud, and with every heartbeat, the truth twisted deeper. "You're wrong," he said, fighting back the tremor in his voice. "You don't own me. You don't control who I become." His father chuckled, a low, chilling sound that echoed through the smoke-filled alley. "That's where you're mistaken, son. You think you've built something? Everything you have is because I allowed it." Elijah clenched his fists, rage boiling in his blood. "I fought for this. I clawed my way out of the dirt, and now you think you can just step back in? Enough!" his father roared, the force of his voice cutting through the chaos. And then he turned, a flick of his wrist, signaling the men in dark suits flanking him. "Seize them!" Suddenly, the air crackled with tension. The suited men lunged forward, but just as the chaos erupted, Cassie darted to protect Elijah's brother, pulling him behind her. "Run!" she shouted, keeping her body between them and the threats. Elijah's heart raced. Time slowed, every decision hanging in the balance. "We can't leave you." "Just go." Cassie yelled, determination burning in her eyes. "We'll hold them off." "But now, Eli!" And with that, the fear of losing Cassie pushed Elijah forward. He grabbed his brother's arm, and together they sprinted down the narrow alley, the sound of chaos fading behind them. As they rounded the corner, they could still hear Cassie's shouts, heroic, yet tinged with desperation. Elijah's chest tightened. How could he leave her? But there was no time for second guesses. They had to escape. They raced into the night, the streets alive with the sound of sirens and distant chaos. Turning into the nearest building, they ducked into a dimly lit hallway. Breathing hard, Elijah leaned against the cool concrete wall. His brother stood beside him, eyes wide with shock. "What just happened?" he gasped, urgency thrumming between them. "He's alive. He played us." Elijah could barely breathe, the reality crashing over him like waves. "Our whole lives. It was all a trap." His brother blinked, disbelief flickering in his eyes. "But why? Why would he want this?" "Control," Elijah replied, anger giving way to clarity. "He wants to drag me back into his world. He wants to use me, just like he did before." The words hung between them, heavy and painful. A silence fell, saturated with the weight of lost trust. "Elijah," his brother finally murmured, "I never should have blamed you. We have to stop him." "Together we will," Elijah agreed, determination sparking. "We can't let him win." Just then, a shadow passed the end of the hallway. The air shifted, a predator on the hunt. They exchanged terrified glances. "What now?" his brother whispered. "We fight," Elijah said firmly. "I'm done running." Without another word, they moved towards the sound of chaos. A new alliance forged in the heart of danger. the determination to reclaim their lives, replacing fear. The hallway led them to a door, and Elijah pushed it open, eyes narrowing against the blinding light. Outside, the city bustled unknowingly, but among the chaos, squinting through the rush of bodies, he spotted two figures, Cassie, battered but standing tall, and Marcus, face twisted with a mix of desperation and rage. "Elijah!" Cassie yelled, urgency filling her words. "Help us!" In that moment, it all blurred together. A fight for survival. A fight against family ties and betrayal. Elijah stepped forward, locking eyes with Marcus. It was now or never. And just as Elijah opened his mouth to call out, a flash of movement caught his attention. Time shattered. A deafening roar followed, a vehicle barreling down the street. It hit with a force that sent shockwaves through the ground, scattering everyone around them. Elijah stumbled, heart racing as he fought to stay on his feet. Chaos erupted, shouts of terror, screams of panic. And in that haze, Elijah looked to his brother, realization dawning in their eyes. This wasn't just about them anymore. It was about everyone caught in their world of broken ties and hidden truths. "Elijah!" Cassie's voice rang through the madness. "Get out! Now!" He had lost everything once. He wasn't going to again. It ended here, with a last glance at the shattered lives swirling around him. Elijah felt a rush of adrenaline. They could break the cycle. The future loomed chaotic, uncertain, but he was ready to fight for it. For his family, for himself. And in that pulse of clarity, Elijah knew the story wasn't ending. Not yet. The shadows were still out there. The echoes of his past still loomed large. But a new beginning was on the horizon, waiting for those brave enough to chase it. But you need to act now. Don't wait another second. Subscribe immediately to our channel so you don't miss the next incredible chapter. Smash that like button right now to feed the algorithm. Let's show the world what it means to support this community. Flood the comments. Share your wild theories about Elijah's journey and what might happen next. And share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this ending. This is your moment to stand up, and we need your voice to keep the story alive. 2.